Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns. Hi, and thank you for joining me. This is Kim Howerton, and this is episode number 44 of Keto Life Support. Today, we're talking about sort of the mindset and how to deal with it when you are that very special person that has a real struggle to see body fat drop. Call it the slow loser. But often the only part of that we really feel is the loser part, and not in a good way. So today, let's talk about some strategies to deal with your wily mind when you are someone who loses at a snail's pace. Hello and welcome to another episode of Keto Life Support. This is Kim Howerton, and I am glad to be coming to you because today we're going to be talking about something that comes up fairly frequently. That is the topic of slow weight loss. And that for some of us, weight loss, or rather I should say fat loss, is a slow moving thing. Whereas other people seem to drop weight very, very quickly. So let's talk a little bit about the life of a slow loser and how it works, how it doesn't work, what's going on there. So a lot of times people come to keto with an expectation that they're going to lose weight like rapidly. What happens to a lot of us is we're like, wow, I lost 10 pounds in my first week. So if I extrapolate, that's 10 pounds a week for the next 20 weeks. I'm losing 200 pounds? Wait, what? How does this work? And then it doesn't work that way because it doesn't work that way. And it's very, very troubling for some people. So there's two issues here. One issue is we might have an expectation of a scale of weight loss at a speed of which is just not happening for anyone. And then the second issue is that some of us have even to try and have what they would imagine is a reasonable rate of loss is pretty out of their reach. So to the first group of people, which is they expect to be losing more than, say, 1 to 2 pounds a week initially, and maybe an ongoing half to a pound a week. Anything beyond that is bonus category. And really, over time, the most successful people are people that just keep at it consistently, even if the drops are not dramatic and they're just a little bit and then a little bit and a little bit, and it all adds up to a really fabulous end result if you stick with it. Then there are other people who seem to go weeks at a time with no change on the scale and months at a time with only very, 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 very minor losses or no losses. And so that's who I'm specifically going to talk to. The first group, it's really about expectation setting and being in alignment with the fact that this is a journey. It's not a quick fix. Done deal. Second group, I have a little more experience with because these tend to be the people that come to me, and not surprisingly, I resemble these people who find that for long stretches of time, they're not seeing results. Some people will do things like not lose for months at a time, then drop 5 pounds, then not lose for months at a time, then drop 5 pounds. Then we've got other people where it's like a quarter pound, an eighth of a pound, half a pound. Like it's just very, very slow dribs. I don't know that there's honestly that much difference between these two groups of people other than psychologically, because sometimes we lose body fat but retain water weight. And so we see things happening in more spurts, and other people it's more consistent. But same story in the end, over a reasonable period of time, the weight loss is fairly minimal, and or they're in involuntary maintenance. And so let's talk about the psychology of this. There are plethora of reasons why this might be happening biologically, hormonally, our efforts, is our formulation of our ketogenic diet appropriate? Are we doing the right things? in terms of the actions. And that's always something to look at. But I want to talk about the mindset here. How do you stay engaged and out of overwhelm when you're not seeing the success that you want to see? So let's talk about what overwhelm does. Overwhelm is that feeling of like, I can't take it, right? It comes up for a variety of reasons, but here it tends to be, I've been trying and trying and trying and I'm not getting anywhere and I just feel like a loser, but not in the way I want to be. And I'm not getting any headway and all I can think about is quitting because what's the point? It's too heartbreaking to try anymore. That's what I tend to find, that when people say they're overwhelmed, that they just can't do it anymore, and they've been trying for, weeks to months at a time with no real ground to show for it, these people tend to start to lose hope. They start to lose belief. They start to feel like, what does it matter anyway? And to these people, I just want to keep bringing us back to, you have to come to a place of gratitude and looking at the positives, not the negatives. So why do I say gratitude? What does that have to do with anything? One of the things that constantly kept me motivated was to have a sense of gratitude for the ground that I did gain. So that would be to look at something like, I am grateful that my relationship with food is better. I am grateful that I no longer have an everyday afternoon where I can't keep myself from eating pastries. I am grateful that I feel freed from this sort of mental mindset where I was just constantly feeling low energy, starving, cravings. Like I feel instead of just saying, well, yeah, okay, that's good. I actually feel the gratitude, feel that that is a change and that I am grateful to myself for making that change. And that, you can imagine that there are very few gifts we can give ourselves that are better than the things that we have gotten on our keto journey, right? Whatever those things are, even if it does not include the kind of fat loss that you really wish that you'd seen. Now, if you actually do an analysis and you say, I haven't really gotten anything out of this, that's important to know. If you can honestly say, I've been keto for a reasonable amount of time, I would say over, 3 months, I haven't lost any weight. My relationship with food isn't any different. My relationship with hunger isn't any different. I haven't seen any health successes. Nothing has shifted or nothing has gotten better. That is something to evaluate and say, maybe this experiment isn't for me, or maybe something needs to change about the way I'm going about my approach. But I have never actually run into that. If that person exists, I'm sure they exist. I've not met them. Most people experience some degree of life improvement, and that's what you have to focus on. Now, am I saying you just have to focus on that and accept that you're going to be at the size that you're currently at without any change? Well, not necessarily. I think one of the things we then have to evaluate is, am I in a healthy range? Am I healthy now? Am I able to do the things I want to do? Does my body no longer encumber me, right? Can I fly in an airplane seat without a seatbelt extender? Can I do these things? If you're at a place where it's simply a matter of aesthetics, that's a conversation to have with yourself. And for some people, because I have had these clients, are you actually pretty thin at this point? And you just have an expectation of being at almost an unhealthy level of thinness. Again, not common, but does happen. Anorexia is a thing. Body dysmorphia is a thing. So, getting some perspective on that is important. But if you have good perspective and you're like, no, there is still quite a ways for me to go on my fat loss journey, then I would say it's about a commitment to that, and also a commitment to evaluating, is there something more I could be doing? What does it look like? At the same time, what I want to bring up is sometimes in that space where we're overwhelmed with non-success, we start getting desperate and jump shippy, I call it, where you're like, first I'm going to go carnivore, and then I'm going to go low fat, then I'm going to go high fat, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that. We don't give anything a chance. We do it for 5 days, and then we're like, well, this is clearly not going to work, and we jump ship. That's not how you approach these things. You have to give approaches time. And also you have to go into an experiment. It's an experiment. If you're like, I'm going to do 30 days of carnivore, you have to go into that experiment knowing what you're hoping to find, right? A lot of people will go carnivore with the intention of losing weight, which it actually absolutely tends to do. It tends to, over time, help people get in better alignment with their hunger, get in better alignment with their body, eliminate any troublesome foods at all for them, and get to a place where they drop excess pounds. But it's not uncommon that for the first month, 2, 3, a while, you might see no weight loss. You might see weight gain, depending on how you've been approaching your diet prior to that. Some people who ultimately have lost hundreds of pounds on carnivore, their first few weeks or months, they gained weight. And you have to know your reason when you're going into it and know why you're doing it, what should happen, what's the science there, to either decide if it's worth staying the course or it's worth making a break. And you have to give that enough time. And so you have to look at, how many hurdles are you having to overcome with this approach? So you have to get completely out of quick fix thinking. That being said, if 6 months later you're doing carnivore and you're still gaining weight, you're like, oh, where am I now? What am I doing? You have to be conscious along the way, but you can't be ruled by anxiety in these places. You have to give things a chance, evaluate, and then make a decision to change course or stay the course. So overwhelm is all about this confusion, anxiety. You have to identify what is this underlying anxiety and how do I deal with it? Well, you can always deal with overwhelm and anxiety with clarity and decisiveness. So if you're saying, I'm not happy at the weight I am, I would like to lose more body fat, I'm going to make a decision about what I'm going to do to change. The definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again. But at the same time, if we stop things right before they get good, then that's also insane. It's also harder to know, so it's totally understandable why it happens. And not to be confusing, but again, when you go keto, when you first start being keto, you follow an approach. You're like, I'm just going to cut the carbs to begin with. You get solid in that. Then you say, is this still working? Yes or no? If yes, continue. If no, change something. Okay, now I'm going to count macros. Okay, how'd that go? It's better, but there are still issues. Okay, what macros are you following? Do those macros need to change or be tweaked? Okay, I'm going to change them. Okay, what happened then? Give it time. Give it some data. Use some education in those decisions. When you make a change, I'm going to change my macros. Don't just change them at whim. Think about why you're changing them. What's the reasoning behind wanting to change them? What's the evidence about where you're going with them, right? If you're like, oh, I'm pretty insulin sensitive now. I don't know that I think that a higher protein approach might work. I see with people that are more insulin sensitive, that tends to work. I'm going to try that, right? Make a decision, be definitive, make a change. That doesn't mean that you're going to start dropping weight like, I don't know an analogy here, like crazy, but the needle should start to move again. If the needle does not move, you have to look for what might be the other reasons that it's not. And some people have to go through a variety of options before they get to the outcome. This is a lot of the reason that people hire a coach, because they need someone in their corner as they're making these changes. So just to get back to it, the biggest thing that I want people to know if they're not seeing the success that they want is, one, you have to better align your expectations with your actions. If you're not taking actions that will result in the outcome that you want, then you have to either adjust your actions or adjust your outcome. And that is really central, because I see a lot of people banging their head against the wall, spinning their wheels, whatever you want to say, doing the same thing over and over again, getting the same results over and over again. And it's not to say that you can change your metabolism in a wiggle of a nose, like on I Dream of Jeannie, right? You are in a body that has certain realities right now, but you want to be headed in the right trajectory with as much motion behind that as you possibly can. For me, on my journey, I lost, a good deal of weight my first year to year and a half. It really stalled out. I got really frustrated. I kind of doubled down on some things that weren't working. I tried some other things. Nothing seemed to work. Back and forth and back and forth. And I had to really go to the science and look at, why is this happening? What's going on my journey? What might be the cause of this? What is going on with my metabolism? Why was it working and why did it stop? And through the investigation, ended up taking a diet break, ended up going on a reverse diet, ended up, taking my attention off of that fat loss for quite some time, putting my attention on being able to consume a higher caloric load without weight gain. And then I said, okay, I'm ready to fly again. I'm ready to start to go into a weight loss phase again. And then I was successful in a way that I hadn't been successful for quite a while, because I took the time to stop and evaluate and remember that this is not a quick fix. I care, but I care less about what I weigh next year than what I weigh 5 years from now, because I know that ultimately my journey is a long one. And hopefully, because my journey is my life. I want my life to be long and I want it to feel good and I want, positive outcomes and I want to reverse health issues. And as I'm doing that, as my body size is getting smaller, I find pleasure in that. Absolutely. But I try and adjust my focus to my health and long-term fat loss success rather than sacrificing long-term for short-term. So I think it's really important to focus on what are you getting out of your experience? What are you grateful for? What are you learning about yourself? What are you learning about your body? What are you learning about the way your brain works? And how do you stay out of that overwhelm and anxiety? You stay out of that overwhelm and anxiety by concentrating on making clear decisions and staying in definitive action. Motion creates clarity. And hesitation creates confusion. So you want to stay in action, but not in frantic action. There's a difference, right? You know the difference. When you're frantic versus when you're, deliberately putting one foot in front of the other because you have a plan. When you're deliberate, you have a plan that you're following. The thoughts, the steps, they're planned out and they're decisive. When you're taking anxiety-based action, you're running around with a chicken with your head cut off. If someone was following your map, they'd be like, where are they even going? You're turning in circles and you're going back and forth and back and forth. You don't want your heat map to look like that. You want it to be clear, easy to follow, and based in decisions rather than reactions. Okay, guys, just a quick one today because I want you to have the success that you've always dreamed of. And along the way, I want you to actually feel good about yourself as a person, because what you're doing isn't easy. Might be simple, but it's certainly not easy. And it can be if you let it be, if you do the inner work. This change, this health change, can actually be the thing that not just changes your health, but in fact changes every aspect of your life. You can learn better boundaries. You can learn better self-care. You can learn how to be nice to yourself. You can learn so much if you surrender to the journey and undertake all the changes that it asks of you right now. So I hope that for you. And if you're frustrated, if you're not seeing the success you want, if you have questions, you know where to find me. I'm at Keto Life Support. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're part of the Keto fam. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.